ease of joining and, travel times. People are always commuting early in the morning in terms of 8 o'clock. So, the members and the network felt as though 10 would be way better. And yeah, we're just trying it out that way. Yeah, so the urban practice forums are just conceptualized to really be the hub for knowledge sharing, collaboration, and just ensuring that we're networking as a industry. For those interested and involved in all things precinct management and urban management, it's just a space to learn together, share knowledge, and collaborate and grow industry as much as possible. So this session in particular has got a very interesting focus around all things circular economy, sustainability, data-driven research. And I think the speakers will obviously come in and share all the presentations that will be really be around sustainability at essence and also just data-driven research. So thank you for flighting the agenda for the day, Katie. I'll just shut off my camera for bandwidth, but yeah, these are the presenters for the day. Obviously, jam-packed session, so I don't want to waste too much time speaking because I don't want to cut off any speakers. I want to make sure all the speakers can have adequate time to go through this important subject matter and allow for a proper Q&A and exchange of context information, that sort of thing. So yeah, this is the agenda. Katie, can you flag the minute? Katie. I think maybe Katie's struggling, so I will just flag for time being. While I'm saying that, I just pasted links in the chat to all um, our social media platforms, online platforms for you to join and be up to date with everything that we're doing as the GPMA. And of course, to also watch our previous sessions as we had Garrett Goliath in our last session speaking all things land value capture. So that would be if that's something of interest to you, please do go to the links, our website, and watch that previous session. So here's the minutes from the last session. This was our last 8 o'clock session. So please do just look at the emails and your organizations, obviously name, spelling, and just to let us know if everything is correct. Ignore so the highlighted names are just those that we had a problem just accessing the email. So if you are in the meeting or have the certain person's email, please do just drop it in the chat box so we can record it. And yeah, as I said, the session, you can go and watch it on our online platforms. It was around land value capture, tax increment financing, development assessment districts, special assessment districts, all that sort of thing. So please do check that out. And yeah, so going into today's session, the first speaker is the City and Regions lead at the Doughnut Economics Action Lab. Which was obviously the Doughnut Economics Action Lab was founded by the author of Doughnut Economics, Kate Raworth. Deals organization supporting practitioners working with the donut across sectors, and Leonora supports the work of over 60 local and regional governments that have been using donut economics in their policy strategies and processes globally. Leonora is an urban planner, so am I, researcher and citizen participation practitioner holding a PhD in urbanism. Previously, Leonora has worked as an urban planning consultant for UN Habitat, a city leadership associate at University College London, a community engagement consultant for planning projects in the UK, and as a civic activist in her home country of Macedonia. So, without further ado, um, Leonora, you can just feel free to just come in, fly to your presentation, and really, the floor is yours. Hopefully, I did justice with reading your bio, and yeah, looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
So let me unmute myself. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Calayde, and thank you for having me here. I will start sharing. I have slides to share, and hopefully that all works all right. But just let me know if something isn't working.
Okay, it's coming clearly. You can proceed. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I will be talking today about Doughnut Economics and what this is. And since it's a relatively new theoretical idea, out of which a lot of practice emerged, I will be talking both about the theory. So what is a theory? Some of you may be familiar already with it, or very well familiar with it. Some of you may have heard about it or seen a bit of it somewhere. So I'll speak about what is Doughnut economics, and then how it actually is being applied into practice in kind of urban environments, specifically by local governments. I am, as Calayde said, I'm part of the Doughnut Economics Action Lab. We're a very small organization that's based remotely in different places in Europe, mostly. And we kind of, our sole purpose and mission as an organization is to support this emergent practice, so to support practitioners for free around the world that are in different ways experimenting with these ideas in local governments, but also in in the private sector, also in educational settings, in businesses, etc. So what is Doughnut economics? It is originally an idea that was kind of put together in a book called Doughnut Economics: 7 Ways to Think Like a 21st Century Economist. It's written by Kate Raworth. She's an English economist, and it comes, like, for her, it comes from a reaction to 20th century economics, how it was being still taught in school in 21st century, and how it is still underpinning how we think, and also how we govern, manage, operate our cities, our societies, our industries. So the book really responds, kind of offers an alternative way of thinking to those that are typical for 20th century economics, and that are still mainstream, that are still being kind of studied and practiced as mainstream economy. It offers a critical alternative, drawing from a lot of economic uh, traditions and theories, like feminist economics, development economics, ecological economics. And as you heard, like, some of you may be actual economists. I'm not. Many of us in this world of economics, Doughnut economics, are not. And it is part of the book and the theory to expand that understanding beyond a very narrow limit of who should be talking about and working around economics and urban economics. Um, so the book offers an alternative vision for progress for 21st century primarily, and the shifts that are needed, the ways of thinking that need to change in order for us to be moving towards a better future. And one of at the core of the Doughnut economics is the donut, this visual that you see on the right. And that is a kind of the direct reaction of how we envision, measure, and talk about progress in the 20th century and still now in the 21st century. And often we do this through the very narrow capacity of a single indicator, which is the GDP growth, the GDP curve, the economic growth indicator. This has become kind of the way in which we measure the success of a nation, the progress of a region, the progress of cities, and what we should be striving for. But it is um, a measure that doesn't encompass anything about how well we're doing as people, about how well the environment in which we live in is doing, the ecosystems that are sustaining us, etc. And it is a curve, kind of this, the goal of the 20th century is this curve that we always just see kind of going out of screen. But if we're being, realistic about how we actually set our goals are to grow endlessly. So for this curve to keep on growing and growing and growing and growing. The donut on the other side brings into this idea of what progress should look like all these things that are invisible and non-existent in this economic growth indicator. So the donut, and it also questions how our relationship to growth. And for this, we're bringing kind of this quote of the mother of systems thinking, one of the great thinkers, that's Donella Meadows, who always ask growth of what and why and for whom and who pays the cost and how long can it last and what's the cost to the planet and how much is enough. So we're more and more understanding and knowing about the limits to endless growth on a planet with finite resources. And when I say we, I am speaking about contemporary societies, often kind of Western economic thinking, etc. Because, of course, the understanding of these limits to grow and the need to live in balance has been around for centuries and millennia in many places. So what is the donut, this visual that you see? If you imagine humanity's use of Earth's resources circulating from the center towards the outside, the donut is inviting us to say that we need to be using enough resources so that nobody falls short, no human falls in that hole in the middle, so that everybody goes over that inner circle, which is the social foundation, and gets access to all of these themes on the inner circle that are the basic needs for a happy, healthy, dignified life. So we want all people to use enough resources so they get access to energy, to water, to food, to health, to education, to income and work, to peace and justice, political voice, social equity, gender equality, housing, networks, energy. We want everybody to get enough of this and reach that safe and just space for humanity that's in the green space in the middle. However, at the same time, we cannot let our collective use of resources push over that outer circle, which is the ecological ceiling, because we now understand that there is limit to how much pressure we can put on our planet before it starts breaking down. So the donut is essentially drawn from, these themes on the inside are crowdsourced from the Sustainable Development Goals that you're, of course, familiar with, and the outer circle is drawn from the planetary boundaries. And if you're not familiar with the planetary boundaries, they're still there were kind of these Earth-scale life-supporting systems, 9 systems that were identified around, I think, 15 years ago now by a team of Earth system scientists who started understanding and measuring to quantifiable indicators how much human-made pressure can these systems take. So in these systems, we have climate change, but we also have biodiversity as core systems. And alongside them, we have ozone layer depletion, we have air pollution, we have chemical pollution, fertilizer use, land conversion, freshwater withdrawals. So these are all systems that essentially have the capacity to, when stretch beyond beyond how much pressure they can take, they can start causing planetary scale damage and consequences, as we're seeing with climate change and as we're gradually seeing as well with biodiversity and some of the others. So the Planetary boundaries basically gave us a kind of a quantifiable way to be understanding where is the limit of how much pressure we can be putting on the ecological ceiling. And the donut brought together these two concepts, kind of the social foundation and the ecological ceiling. So essentially talking about the social justice and ecological justice at the same time within kind of the safe, within the means of the living planet. So the donut, essentially, you can think about it as a compass for human prosperity in the 21st century, aiming to meet the needs of all people within the means of the living planet. Don't leave anybody in the hole, do not overshoot the limits. It is, of course, very simple, kind of, and simply drawn, but it is important because it's not how we prioritize decisions. It's not how we manage, how we govern our spaces and cities. It's not how we bring national level policies and decisions. They're not guided by the balance of these two so often in so many contexts. And the relationship that the donut has with the idea of economic growth is what Kate Raworth has called being agnostic to growth. So we shouldn't be aiming to grow whether or not we thrive, but aiming to thrive whether or not we grow. So, prioritizing meeting needs of people and living within planetary boundaries, and then allowing for GDP to adjust as a result of this sort of approach and policies rather than the other way around. So if this is the vision for the compass for prosperity, this is the selfie of humanity right now. This is how far we are towards living in that green, safe, and just space of humanity. So based on quantifiable indicators, both on the social side and ecological side, this is how humanity looks like right now. We have both billions of people still living in deprivation without having met their basic needs, while at the same time we have massively overshot the planetary boundaries. So this becomes, through the lenses of Doughnut Economics, this becomes the challenge, the task of our generation really, is to turn this image around, to go back into that green, safe, and just space from this space of critical deprivation and critical degradation. And of course, we have one success story of having done that, and that's the ozone layer depletion. You'll see that's one of the 9 planetary boundaries, and the one that doesn't have a red wedge, because we actually, through collective action and global cooperation, we did turn that picture around and improved, came back from the critical zone in terms of pressure on the ozone layer from the 90s until today. But as for the rest of the indicators go, here you can see, and you can find details of this. I can share resources and an article that was recently published, but you can see kind of unrolled the indicators of the donut. You see the ecological ceiling on the top, you see the social foundation on the bottom, and you see changes over 20 years in which these indicators are measured from 2000 until 2022. You'll see in the dark red are where things have gone worse. So on the ecological side, most things have actually gone worse over the course of 20 years. So we've increased our CO2 emissions, we increased our fertilizer use, our land conversion, etc. And on the social foundation, there's a lot more improvement, but not nearly enough as we could have and should have seen over the course of 20 years, not nearly comparable to where we need to get to in order to lift billions out of poverty and meet basic needs. And this image, this selfie, looks very differently from place to place. It isn't through the lens of the donut. every nation must transform, but every nation is different and in a different position. You can see kind of this coming from this study called National Donuts, where these are indicators are downscaled to comparable indicators for different countries. You can see how different countries, including South Africa, can be compared to each other. These are, of course, very high-level comparable indicators. They don't go into the realistic granularity of how a country is doing and how are the inequalities that exist within the territory of a country, but make sort of a high-level global comparison in terms of where different countries are, so that we can see that there are countries on the far end of deprivation where people are still living, a big percentage of people are living in deprivation, but where basically the countries have not been putting any significant pressure on the planetary boundaries. Whereas on the other hand, we have countries, and these are typically, of course, divided by lower income and higher income. A higher income country like the United Kingdom, where I'm based, where, again, on a higher level, the social foundation is relatively all right. As I said, on a higher level, this isn't the granular reality, but the pressure that the UK has put on the planetary boundaries far exceeds the fair kind of budget, fair carbon budgets, fair material budgets of what we should have, what this country historically could have and it should have done. And so every nation must be transforming in order to get into that safe and just space of the donut, but in very different ways. And you can see in this kind of scatter plot, in the top left corner is where we want to get to. So that's the donut, that's the ideal place. And then these axes are like the social foundation and the ecological ceiling. You can see a selection of countries. The full study has 150 countries, and you can see some of them here, and how they're all far from the donut, but need to be moving in different trajectories, with many, the countries on these axes needing to kind of rise and grow, but grow in a different way than the countries on the far end right, who have far exceeded their, fair share of ecological pressure. And of course, we're very well aware, these aren't individual countries all that have independent from one another. This scatter plot looks the way that it looks because of the historical unjust and unequal relationships between different countries and part of the world, through colonialism, through military power, through ongoing post-colonial trade and finance rules, and unequal extraction of labor, of materials, and of course now ongoing climate change impacts, for which the most kind of higher income countries bear the biggest responsibility, and the lowest income countries are suffering the biggest consequences. So there needs to, each nation needs to transform, but also the global relationships of power need to transform as well. And through this lens, again, of the lenses of the donut, we're challenging this dichotomy and division of countries in developed and developing, because we don't think that any country should be called developed when it has caused massive ecological damage that has caused damage throughout the entire world. There's nothing developed about that. So instead, it gives us a different way to look at what development is and could be and should be. So this is at the core of the theoretical concepts. I still haven't started talking about the practice, really. And it's the main idea of these 7 ways, as I said, to think like a 21st century economist. The first one is kind of the donut. So it's changing the goal from GDP growth to the donut. And then the rest I'm not going to go to the rest of the 7 ways, but again, I can send resources if you're curious afterwards. But there are different shifts in the ways of thinking that are underpinning a lot of the things we do that are needed if we want to be kind of turning this picture around. And they're anything from moving from linear systems to linear thinking to systems thinking, moving from understanding the economy as just the state and the market towards a richer understanding of the economy as embedded within the living world and encompassing as well the commons and the households as economic provisioning systems, etc. So it's like different shifts of kind of core areas of economic thinking. But now moving from the theory to the practice. So really when the book was originally written, which was 2017, so less than 10 years ago, it wasn't written as a practical guide of any sort. It was written as kind of a theoretical offering to economic thinking. But it actually, because of many things, because of how it brought things together, I reckon because of its holistic nature, it resonated with a lot of practitioners, and they started kind of experimenting with it in different ways, in, you know, whether it's in architectural and urban plans, or whether it's in kind of local government conversations. People started experimenting with Doughnut Economics ideas. And that's when the Doughnut Economics Action Lab was formed in response to this interest already rising and being kind of like, okay, there's clearly an interest here, so let's see how we can support that, and let's see what it evolves into. And the work is happening across different sectors. I have a lot of work is happening led by communities at the grassroots level, and researchers and academics and in schools. And I'm particularly supporting the work that's happening in local governments and different organizations that work with local governments in urban and rural environments. And I'll share a bit about the practice specifically by local governments, and share some examples of what that has looked like. So kind of the common denominator for all places is, you know, what does it mean to be aiming for the donut, to be bringing these ideas? It's about bringing in new ways of thinking and new ways of setting the goal for your place, for your neighborhood, for your municipality, for your, you know, city or region. And to start doing that, to start unwrapping what it means for a place to live in the donut, we start, for many places, we kind of propose this framework of localizing this idea of the donut by asking this quite high level question: how can our place become a home to thriving people in a thriving place while respecting the well being of all people and the health of the whole planet? And this dense question is really composed of 4 questions, because when we localize the donut to the scale of places, we keep the ecological ceiling and the social foundation, but we also bring the recognition of local aspirations coexisting with global responsibilities. So we divide this social and ecological ceiling, these 2 sides turned into what we call 4 lenses. So we have the local social lens, is how can all the people of our place thrive? That's about the well-being of people here in our own place, meeting all the needs in our city, in our neighborhood. The second lens is the local ecological lens, asking how can our place be as generous as nearby nature? Or how can, it's kind of formulated drawing from biomimicry, how can we restore and regenerate our local ecosystems? And this is about recognizing all the things that each place is built into what was once a healthy ecosystem, that, you know, if we move away further from our city, from our town, we'll reach a place where nature still thrives in balance and cycles water and stores carbon and houses biodiversity and kind of regenerates soil. So how can we be as respectful to the ecosystems and start actively regenerating them through the ways in which we build and design our cities, whether it's so that we, you know, produce as much renewable energy, or create permeable surfaces to cycle water, or you know, unpaved and open pathways for wildlife to be able to pass through and thrive in our places. So what are the different ways in which we can be not just reducing our harm to minimum and to zero on our local ecosystems, but actively helping them thrive. So those are the local dimensions of the donut and setting the vision through them. And then the global ones are the global ecological lens is how can our place respect the health of the whole planet? And that's about recognizing the impact of our actions here on those planetary boundaries. So whether it's through our energy use, our lifestyles, our consumption and production patterns, how are we impacting, through emissions, through material use, the health of the entire planet? The fourth lens, this very often invisible lens, is how can our place respect the well-being of all people? And this is about recognizing the interconnections of each place with people in other regions of the world, which is particularly, or in other regions of the same country as well, particularly relevant for so-called global north countries where so much of meeting the needs of people here relies on kind of extraction and labor from elsewhere that often remains invisible. But each place, we're living in a very interconnected world, so each place in the world depends and is connected to people elsewhere through supply chains, through kind of policy network, through advocacy. So how do we, how can our place respect the well-being of all people, whether it's through, visibility and awareness of fairness through supply chains and the conditions of the workers supplying our materials, our products that we use here, or whether it's through the actions we do here to advocate for people living under occupation elsewhere, the impacts of our governments on people in different parts of the world, etc. And so these are the four lenses of kind of setting a local vision and thinking locally through the donut. It's very big and holistic, and also it can be used in different ways and a starting point for many different ways of thinking and working. So in many places, they're using this, and we at Deal have created a lot of materials out of these lenses, whether it's workshop materials and printables and different frameworks and presentations, kind of different things you can do with them. You'll see here some images from neighborhood visioning workshops. So kind of helping people come together and think about local visions in holistic ways, helping them develop localized way to set goals and set measures as well. We have a methodology about quantifying and kind of creating what we call a local portrait of a place, like the one here you can see is from Barcelona, similar to those global portraits, but a scale of a city, comparing where we are now to where we need to be long term. And also, for many places, in many situations, these four lenses are framework of kind of putting anything in the middle of it, really, whether it's a new building, whether it's a housing strategy, whether it's a climate policy. You can put it in the middle of these four lenses and bring a lot of actors and stakeholders around it to have a conversation that makes all the issues visible in a way, and then the interconnections of it. But it also invites us to set big ambitions. These are kind of an example from when an organization was having a conversation about retrofitting specifically and using materials for retrofitting. So what are all the possibilities and things that we can be thinking about through the four lenses that sometimes in our day-to-day normal ways of working remain invisible. There is a lot of, I'm very keen always to hear your experiences, but where I have lived and worked in different sectors, there's different tunnel visions that happen, like in the UK in the past 10 years, there's been a very strong climate change focus that has made a tunnel vision and has made, policies, projects, initiatives, budgets really ignore biodiversity, ignore water health, ignore ocean health, etc. So how do these, four lenses help us move away from various tunnel visions? And I'll share a bit. As you can see, there's a lot of local work happening, and what we do at Deal is we develop these various tools and ideas and frameworks, and we put them out there in the commons. They're free to be adapted and contextualized and, turn into life in different ways, where and if it is interesting and valuable for people and communities. And a lot of work has been happening at the grassroots level and a lot of work at the local government level. And I'll share a bit more at the local government level, which has happened. As you can see, still predominantly in European cities, spreading a bit in South and North America and in Asia, and the first places in Africa, although there's more grassroots initiatives happening in Africa than local government ones. And so the practice of cities, of what has been happening in cities with Doughnut Economics, has been a combination of whatever tools we've developed and others have developed, and kind of experimentation in practice. What we do a lot at Deal is convene, events such as this one, as really, but a lot of direct exchanges between people in different places, cities learning from one another, so they can pick up ideas and the best of what's happening and then bring it into their own place. But because, of course, each city in each region is so wildly different in their context, whether it's legal or financial or, policy or whatever the politics are, the practice ends up looking very different from place to place. And so some places it would be a new political leadership and a mayor or the council leadership that comes in, and they're setting a new political transformative agenda, and they use these ideas as part of that new agenda. In different places, maybe it's just the urban planning department or the climate department that are doing some projects and feel like these ideas and these tools can be useful for their visioning processes. And then maybe they start inspiring other departments, and those departments start inspiring other departments, and the word snowballs. But these are kind of the main areas of practical application that we see across places. We see these kind of 5 clusters of practice, and as I said, in most places they start doing one thing and then maybe that spreads to different things. So what are these 5 practical ways of applying? One is data-based diagnostic and monitoring. So as I said, using that methodology and a lot of tools that we have now for visualizing, for helping with indicators, etc. Places develop their own portraits of their place. You can see here Copenhagen and Mexico City and Barcelona and Brussels with their own variations of a portrait that they've used in different ways. So in some places they use it as a bit of an annual report. They kind of update it every year, and then it informs political negotiations, it informs budgeting, it informs prioritization. They've done it at more neighborhood levels as well, or municipality working with the neighborhood, or grassroots initiatives and municipalities, where it's about, again, kind of prioritizing, understanding where the biggest needs are, understanding where the biggest gaps are through this holistic lens, and informing action, or informing collective actions. And in Barcelona, they used it as a basis of this citizen manifesto for sustainability, this big 2000 organization partnerships in the city, partnership for sustainability, to prioritize the common areas of priority and where projects and collaborations need to be built. In many places, they've used it as a compass, as a kind of strategic compass, kind of setting a new compass that often sits above different policies and strategies as sort of a unifying framework, kind of bringing together the social action and the ecological action and setting the direction of movement, often helping define kind of a new sort of long-term sustainability agenda that brings in the balance between social justice and ecological justice, that brings in the ideas of planetary boundaries as well. So here there's EPO for Malaysia and Glasgow in Scotland, and I'm in Canada here, all with their own adapted donuts that sometimes is just kind of becomes the political guide almost for action, the common point of kind of direction and trajectory for the many different departments in a local government. Another way is what we call dialogue and co-creation. So just the very nature of this idea has lended itself very well to basically collaborative and participative processes. So whether it's workshopping between different actors amongst the municipality, or kind of citizens and businesses coming together, and the civil sector and the local government, and whether it's been assemblies and forums and public discussions and kind of participatory processes. So many different ways in which the kind of the visioning and the process has been guided by using this as a kind of a common tool. And another way in which places have been using these ideas has been to develop impact assessment and decision-making tools. So you'll see these are again from three different places in Europe. If you look at the one on the far left from Cornwall, from the UK, that they've now kind of, it started with a bit of an experiment and an Excel sheet, and now they've developed a whole software, tailored software program internally in their local government that everybody has access to. So essentially every project leader can go through this questionnaire that they developed. So they adapted the donut, they adapted the dimensions inner and outside on their own place, they adapted it, they adapted the questions to their own circumstances, and they made a questionnaire that helps you assess, and then pops up this visual traffic light sort of donut showing you what is the potential long-lasting or short-lasting positive or negative impact on your project, so that it helps steer a design and the decisions of a project as a team works on it from the onset. So rather than just kind of assess in the end, assess from the beginning and think of creative ways to do differently, to do better, but also help decision makers in the end, help, council choose between scenarios, help council adopt a budget or not. So many places are developing these sort of approaches that replace their previous decision-making mechanisms that are often based on chaos, honestly, or maybe too financially led based on cost-benefit analysis, but not bringing in the whole picture as well, and missing out on opportunities throughout different projects to be thinking about co-benefits and the possibility to do more than just the narrow mission of a project has been. And finally, places are doing kind of sector or project specific visioning, and this is about bringing in the idea as a help to design and vision and guide anything, whether it's an urban development plan in Thimphu in Bhutan, or a new design school in Tomelilla city in Sweden, or economic transition strategy. So, and it's very different in each of these strategies, and I'll share one or two examples. One is this new school project in Tomelilla, a very small town in Sweden, where they said we'll build a new school based on Doughnut Economics, and we'll open with a question of what does it mean to design a school fit for 21st century curriculum that's designed, constructed, and operated within planetary boundary and brings benefits and to all. And they've set a very broad, they've been evolving the definition of what it means to be building a school based on Doughnut Economics as they've gone along, and use the opportunity to explore many aspects of it, to use it as a test case for new ways of doing procurement and budgeting and project management. What are the old ways that are preventing them to be better, that are locking them into systems where they cannot do more? They're developing their vision, kind of they use their four lenses to keep on evolving the vision and thinking about the different aspects. and as well recognizing the scale of the ambition that kind of building in a global north country like Sweden is already a failure in itself, because ideally nothing new should be built. So they've used this as a uh, almost an anchor for a demonstrator, systems demonstrator for many different sort of experiments and ways of thinking, looking at environmental regeneration and architectural design and technical innovation, but also at community care, broadening the understanding of what one, design and architectural project, how much more it could be if they think not just about the kind of the origin of the materials and the flexibility of the installations, but also can they grow the food that the kids eat on the land of the school there? They design the spaces so they're flexible to become shelter for the community in case of emergency and a gathering place? Can they be looking, how can they be working with AI and new ways of governance? How can we be constructing and deconstructing as well? So broadening the understanding and the possibility. And I'll finish here by sharing some of the learnings that we have, where it's all very early still. These are the first years in which places are working with these ideas, and it's all very different, and we're learning. But some of the main benefits that places have been reporting that are common between places and not very context specific are the shifts in the internal ways of working and governing and thinking and operating. So shifts towards systems-based and integrated thinking and policy making, enhanced collaboration across departments, and having a new narrative that has helped facilitate a collective debate between different actors are some of the things that places have reported they've benefited uh, for. And so yeah, to wrap up, and again, this is what we're learning from different places of why they end up gravitating towards Doughnut Economics. It's because it offers them new and broader and more ambitious way to understand and talk and act around sustainability, with tools for new transformative agendas in an age of crisis. It's a holistic framework, and for many, this is the big draw. It helps them unite social and ecological work and different departments internally and different actors externally. It's a visualization that helps mobilization, helps communication, helps debate complexity. It offers new ways to measure progress and measure impact of decision, but it also offers a new tools that are combined with a narrative as well. And it's a narrative of hope and optimism, where we can see where we can be moving towards. Um, and um, and yeah, I'll stop sharing here. These are some resources where you can see a bit more. On the right is a research article kind of mapping the state of practice on what's been happening so far. On the left is a bit more practical guide where you can uh, get kind of a lot of ideas and pathways on how to get started in practice with this, and read through case studies from different cities and places and what they've been doing. I'll stop sharing here and welcome any questions.
Thanks, Leonora. What a great presentation. I really commend the work that you do. Actually, from a background where we used to try to implement the well-being economy, I think it's got reminiscences of the donuts in terms of just ensuring that we are always considering the environmental impact in the strategies that we develop, as well as ensuring that the social foundations are there. So I really align with the concept that you and your organization are driving, particularly, thriving, thriving even if there's no growth, rather than growth even if we don't thrive. I think it really speaks to that. I'm gonna just open up for questions for anyone who wants to ask me any questions. I'm sure there'll be a lot of requests for your email address from the colleagues on this meeting around ways to incorporate the donut in their context. But I'm just gonna open up for any questions. If there aren't any current questions, you want to think about it, you can just put them in the chat box and then I'll ask it later on. But yeah, anyone who wants to come up and just speak to you? Okay, cool. So essentially, what I will do is I will ensure that your contact details are readily available for our network. And then obviously we will just be posting this session up. We'll just obviously request that you please do send the presentation so we can also upload the slides as well. But yeah, my question would be, what's the best timeline to utilize the donut? Would it be in the medium? I know the focus is in long term, but most voting terms are, in 5 year period. Is it really feasible or realistic to achieve that regenerative economy in that timeline?
Um, well, I mean, I guess the short answer is no. It's not. We can't really be turning everything around in 5 year times. But we're sometimes a bit hampered by this thing that there's only so much we can achieve in the short term. We have only had basically a total since the first city started working with Doughnut Economics. It's been 5 years, so that's all the kind of case studies that we have are 5 years or less, and they're at very different scales. Somewhat at a project scale, someone at a local government scale. I would um, I would think I would see that a lot of uh, quite incredible impact has happened even within 1 and 2 year scales that may be not as measurable as, and now everybody in this neighborhood is thriving and we've restored the ecology. It takes kind of a longer shift from that, but a move in that direction in which you can see the projects are being designed differently. Like in Amsterdam was the first city that started, and they used Doughnut Economics for their circular economy strategy specifically, and they've done big shifts in terms of kind of prioritizing the sectors that need to transform, building new sort of implementation partnerships with different actors, with different businesses and industries around food, around retail, around construction, kind of identifying the chains where the uh, biggest change is needed. And so they're turning the needle gradually, and that change is more significant in some areas and less significant in other areas, but it's certainly making a shift. And so the other, I guess it's hard to answer the question of what is an ideal timeline. The ideal timeline is start now, and and then see where it goes. And as you said, Calayde, it's the well-being economy principles and many other ideas like well-being economy, donut economy, gross national happiness. There are many concepts and ideas and out there that speak to the similar vision. No doubt some South African that I'm not familiar with. But what we do know for sure is that we cannot go on in the same ways that we've operated until today. We're seeing that a kind of the extractive, degenerative, profit prioritizing ways of operating of, uh, late stage capitalism really are not compatible with human well-being and are not compatible with the planetary health. So we need to be making the shifts and finding wherever is the right time to an opportunity to do them.
Yeah. Strategies might obviously deter the business environment in certain ways in terms of limiting their production and output. But I just wanted to understand, in terms of when you are implementing the strategies after you've obviously done a portrait of the space and developed the recommendations, would this initiative have to be enforced, on a government level? To ensure that the private sector doesn't, go in their own direction in a sense.
I mean, I spoke mostly of I spoke specifically of examples that are local government led, just because that's my area of work. But there are many initiatives that don't involve local government at all, where it's just there are actually maybe around 80 places or more than 80 places around the world where so-called like donut economics coalitions have been formed. So there's like a London Donut Economic Coalition and an India Donut Economic Coalition and a Mexico Donut Economic Coalition. So there are place-based coalitions between different actors. So that's often businesses and civil sector and individuals and different organizations coming together and kind of harnessing collective action using these ideas in different ways. And but often it's about kind of directing them on towards education and kind of common learning and narrative shifting. And sometimes it's about making in London, for instance, the coalition is working on of specific neighborhood projects that will be built projects and are done in a way that don't involve the local government at all. Where the places and I know that you are I'm very vaguely familiar with how precincts operate and how the city improvement districts operate in South Africa, and I know it's a unique setup. Um, but um, uh, uh, but as I said, we don't. It's not prescriptive. The ideas of donut economics are not a prescriptive pathway for action. They're a framework for asking questions that will help you evolve kind of localized solutions. So every place has done it a bit differently, and the where they've done it really well, and local governments have built good partnerships with the private sector, kind of really harnessing and collective action and directing it in a way that's not uh, um, you know, degenerative. But also, there are examples, for instance, in Brussels region, their strategy and the way that used donut economics were specifically for their economic transition strategy. And their focus was on helping the businesses and industries transform towards being more social and ecologically just. Because the reality of the things is that many businesses are operating in unsustainable ways because they worked based on the system and what was given to them legally, financially, what were the conditions of work. So in the Brussels strategy, they focused on kind of the legal and financial mechanisms that the region has. So they had subsidies and incentives that they're giving to businesses. That had a regional development bank that gives loans. They have kind of a research and development funding for innovations, etc. So they used kind of donut economics as a vision to develop their these sort of definitions of socially and ecologically exemplary businesses, and basically plan for the helping the transformation of all businesses and industries to become social and ecologically exemplary by shifting kind of the subsidies and incentives and financial and legal support that they're giving in the course of kind of 5 to 10 years. So being like, if you're social and ecologically exemplary, now you'll start getting better subsidies, better access to resources, and in a 10 years time you can only get these resources if you are already transformed. So that's an example of where the local regional government took an active role, not just in putting pressure on businesses to do better, but to help kind of the transformation of businesses as well.
Yeah, I think that was really my next question around how is this incentivized in your experience? But thank you for addressing that question I had as well. Yeah, on my side, obviously, thank you for presenting. Definitely share your email address with everyone. And I think really it's a very thought-provoking exercise just to really ask, you know, growth for what, why, for who, and really scrutinize the impact on the environment, the society, and the economy whenever, embarking on a new initiative, policy, development plan, so on and so forth. So, definitely thank you for presenting, and yeah, please do keep doing the great work that you and your team are doing.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I'll share all materials and my email, and feel free to get in touch as well. As I said, we are kind of, as an organization, we exist with the open invitation for everybody to get in touch. And if you're curious about these ideas, if you want to know more, if you want to get started in some ways, we have many ways of supporting practitioners for free. So will welcome anybody reaching out at any point, and wishing you the rest of great of ongoing discussion.
Thank you very much. I love how you snuck in the for free. Yeah, definitely. They will be reaching out to you in their capacity. I see James clapped. Yeah, thank you for that, Leonora. Yeah, moving on to Dr. Davey. Hey, Calayde. I see you have already opened up your video. Definitely, thank you for joining. The last time you joined us, I think was last year, April. So I still have your bio as a PhD holder in environmental design and planning from the US and a master's in architecture in South Africa. You obviously at the University of Pretoria's architecture department as a senior lecturer, and you lead the Hatfield Digital Twin City Initiative and Urban Strategy Studio. And obviously, your work focuses on urbanism, fourth industrial revolution, and sixth industrial revolution, and a regenerative future of Africa's built environment. And obviously, you did find the BMI Harambe, which I have attended once before. And yeah, thank you for joining. And yeah, feel free to go into your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Katlego. Just keep me on time in case I go over, okay?
No worries.
Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm very pleased that donuts went before us because I hope to bring it down to the ground. We often work with Doughnut Lab thinking, but today I want to make an offer for you to think of 2027 and how your precinct could either engage in the kind of work that Donuts does or the things that I'm going to show you today. So today I'm not speaking about research or findings or anything. I'm going to take you through a process that we run every year at the beginning of the year, Q1, called Urban Strategy Studio. I work very closely with the Hatfield CID in the studio. It's a postgraduate environment for architecture and landscape and interior architecture. We often have participants from any other discipline that is interested in the topic. So don't think of my talk today don't think of the details. Imagine that this is the classroom that you'll be joining us. And if you're interested in setting us a challenge and working with us in the studio format for 2027 or any other year, I'm inviting you to connect with me. Every year we design themes and challenges, and we go on a journey for the students to unpack that. So I teach a lot of stuff. But for this conversation, I'll teach urban design and urban strategy, specifically for students who have no experience in it. And also who need to understand that the city is a complex system and how they could, and there's a lot of students who have appetite to work in this way, but they don't know how to get going, how to start to think about it, or where even to get these kinds of jobs. It's usually in the middle between a planner and a designer and an economist, and it's a very complex world that we unpack for them. So just come with me along this journey. And if you're interested in setting a challenge together for 2027, please reach out to me. So my donut is this guy. And I've always had a passion for the regenerative issues and the issues of the world. But at the end of the day, if we're not designing cities for now and generations to come, what are we doing? And what are we spending our time and energy on? And then, like a lot of what Doughnut Economics is advocating for, we are trying to do in this studio as a teaching environment to get students to understand that we're generational designers, not just project designers. So students enter this environment. It's a 6-week program that I am running every year. It starts in February for about 6 weeks, and then they have exams. I know it's not the typical talk you will have, but it's an invitation. They go through learning, all about how to think at urban scales, how to set targets, how to learn from reality, how to work with contradictions from stakeholders, how to propose something that has effect in the world and has impact and has some kind of has measurable impact. They don't get it perfect, but they get a lot of creative ideas. Then they do exams. I'm not going to go through all this for you guys. And we talk a lot about what it means to produce cities in Africa for the future and where we're going right and where we're going wrong and what kinds of practices lead to environments that either hurt or help us to thrive. We are very careful that our students do not land in worlds where they perpetuate the bad things, but that they become agents of activation wherever they are. So we take them through this journey of understanding where building and design fits into this urbanism concept and where things go right and where things go wrong. And a lot like the donuts, then they get shifted out of the building scale into the urban scale for the first time, many times. And that they start realizing the building scale of solving problems isn't the speed at which we are going to get through this world in thriving cities, that we have to think of cities as systems of buildings and places and infrastructures and so on. So we use the donut idea and we teach students, we go through all of this kind of learning with our students to help them sensitize to the realities of what they mean to the world and what they mean for urbanism and what all of our design decisions have consequences. And they are these consequences escalate when we are unthinking about them. So we handle topics like circularity, we handle topics like resource efficiency, energy, metabolism, all sorts of things depending on the year. So I'm showing you some historic works of things we've done in the past, basically to amplify a bunch of our internal projects as well. So a lot of the work we do is about the regenerative issues of how do we move from cities that die and towards cities that produce life. So a lot of our themes sit in that. A lot of our themes sit in the 4 and 6 Industrial Revolution topics. And then how do we shift, like the donut suggested, from this egocentric to ecocentric models? These are the topics we typically handle. Last year, we handled an urban challenge, or a blue sky, if you will, called the Hatfield Zero Waste City. And that was a theme. You can see it as a subset of a donut theme, right? And then our students focus on city systems and that they need to shift from a current pattern of behavior into a desired pattern of behavior. And as a result, they learn things about how to shift a linear city to a circular city, and they have to propose all sorts of interventions to make these shifts possible at a systemic level in Hatfield. Now, this develops in them the competencies to be strategic urbanists, not planners, not architects, the guy who sees the whole picture and knows which interventions is most likely to have highest impact. This is our basic ethos. We flip the conventional idea. Whatever is normal, we critique it. We look for systemic urban solutions and lasting meaningful change. It has to be physical for my students. If they don't propose a physical change in the world, they're not a designer. So this is quite the important lessons here. We'll teach them then how to become urban strategists and how to seek out value in complex systems. We teach them how to make a strategy. We teach them the differences between techniques in urbanism. And we go through a whole teaching process. I'm showing you this, which has outcomes that are scalable. So on the one hand, we do a lot of field mapping. like I'm showing you here, that helps us build the Hatfield Digital Twin City, which you've been involved with in the past, or I've been speaking about that in the past. And we also help them to then articulate particular strategies that then they have to come up with design solutions. That we cover systems thinking and all these types of topics in the 6-week course around a particular urban challenge. So last year we covered, our challenge was, how do we turn Hatfield into a zero waste city? From that perspective. And other years we've done a lot of other similar mapping activities across precincts to understand the precinct, to develop solutions, to come up with ideas, and to engage with our stakeholders in meaningful ways. The students, some of the products you'll see now is the student outcomes of how they analyze city states and how they then come up with creative spatial solutions that are systemic in nature, but have meaning and impact in the world. As you can see, many of them are very creative, but it's very helpful for our stakeholders because it sparks new ideas. It gets people motivated to work on urbanism collectively. And it sets up these, the ideology that urbanism isn't my problem, it is our problem, and which kinds of a problem are we going to attack as a community together. So some of these are examples of student works that we do in Hatfield or in other territories to shift urban systems from one state to another state through design. So I think this is very interesting for precinct managers because you don't always have the appetite or the attention or the budget to explore a topic, and students have to explore and learn these skills. And that's why I'm making this offer to you. If you want to participate with us, either maybe through a Doughnut collaboration or other kinds of urbanism issues, I'm very open to setting up a challenge together on your precinct, and we can put some students on a 6-week course on urban strategy to explore and unpack these themes. So, for example, we've been doing this for 10 years in Hatfield and other territories, but really focusing on Hatfield because we're situated in Hatfield. It's very easy for my students to access the territory and start learning about all of these precincts and contradictions and issues that they have to uncover. And then they come up with systemic change interventions, such as the ones you see in front of you, and they shift systems from state A to state B. These are always spatial in nature, and then a lot of ideas get picked up in this environment that stakeholders can pursue forward or do whatever they wish from it. It's very helpful to us as a CID because, for example, we learn things that in the CID wouldn't have picked up with formal consultation or things like that. And we also pick up a lot of ideas for the CID that could, or the university or any stakeholder that we engage with in this process that they can take forward. Some of them are very low-key ideas that are very simple. Some of them are very pie in the sky, but we enjoy it because it challenges how we could see, for example, the urban edge in a regenerative public space, or whatever topic we're building with. We've also dealt with circularity topics. In other words, how are we circulating resources through our city? And what does the data tell us when we investigate the city in this way about what things we could change or introduce or so on and so forth. So all of these student project outcomes that you see on the screen here is what will be produced at the end of 6 weeks. So also at the end of this coming 6 weeks, which starts next week. And our theme this year, I'm not going to go into all the details, just to show you examples of what comes out of these works, is our theme this year is going to be a theme that our CID has been hammering me on about for a while. And this is the issue of how do we create public space in South Africa that stops us from fortressing and exclusionary practices. And so, for example, campuses are fenced in, gated communities are fenced in, all these islands and fortresses. How do we change perimeter design so that we have regenerative public space on perimeters while introducing public safety aspects? For example, in Hatfield CID, public safety has been a major issue, and we are now tackling it. Thank you, Lucas. So, for example, 2026, our target is how do we redesign all islands and fortresses in this precinct so that they have permeable, safe, and ecologically active edges. And we hope to explore this topic quite deeply in 2026. So with that, I'm not going to take up a lot of your time, but if you're interested in anything that you've heard today, either from any perspective, Doughnut's or any other kind of theoretical lens, and if you want to partner in your precinct for 2027 in Urban Strategy Studio, please contact me. I'm very open and looking for engagement. We're very interested to expand things and see what we can offer each other. So it's a very short, very wild presentation, but I was just making a very straightforward sales pitch to join and play with you.
No problem, Calayde. Yeah, this work really reminds me of urban planning days. But yeah, the students look very creative in their ideas for their space. And Hatfield looks like it's in good hands in terms of research and data-driven works of that nature. And I see the move to that eco-friendly side of things. I think that's a move that everyone is making. So I think that's very good to see as well. And definitely, I guess you're in the right space. I see Lucas is there from, not Lucas actually, Lodi is there from Tshwane, so I'm sure you're familiar with him, Lodi Fenter.
Yes.
I'm just going to open up for questions or any comments around what you just took us through. Definitely, obviously, if there's no questions, or if there's later questions, I'll send them to you. So I see James. James, you can come in.
Calayde, thank you for your fast and furious presentation and advertorial. Yeah, very exciting to kind of work with a whole bunch of students. I mean, how much time is required from the client in terms of obviously scripting the brief and interacting with yourself and the team of students, over the 6-week period? Because obviously there's got to be quite a bit of interaction, but it'd be quite useful to understand what sort of time is required and resource from the client side.
Yes. Okay. So let me walk you through a typical time requirement. To sculpt the urban challenge, to create that urban challenge is a job that is me and the stakeholders before the class starts, because we want to create a challenge that is worthwhile doing. So let's call that a couple of engagements with you and anyone you deem important in the territory so that I can scope a challenge well. So let's call it half a day. Then I design the whole program. I design all the tools and I put in the things that I think the students need to learn from my side, as well as what you need as outcomes. Obviously, it's students. But then the course starts. We typically have stakeholder engagements, which is a conversation. We take them to your office. You talk whatever you want to talk about. We listen, we interpret, and we identify other stakeholders that might be important and spend half a day with each of them. Then my students go on their mission and they run through the city, and I design them field surveys. They go walk and tag particular things, systems, whatever we come up with in our challenge, they tag in a GIS format. Then they come and interpret the results. We work with them all the way, and you can choose how much engagement is possible for you. What is important is that they have access to site and that they have safe access to site. Otherwise, they are not learning. So that's the only things, and that we can arrange. We can say, all right, there's a day or 2 days that you are going to do field work safely with my guys. And in that process, they also learn a lot about what it is like to run a precinct or whatever is going on for you. In the case of Hatfield, we have a very strong relationship. We have a very safe CID. We are very proud of our CID. So I can let them roam freely in Hatfield without worry. My sheep are taken care of by Mr. Lucas. And that's kind of the program. So the engagement is on, the job is on us to interpret you. And you're just offering your concerns, contradictions, and aspirations.
Great. Thank you.
James, I'm sure you wish your precinct was closer to Hatfield. But
well, no, absolutely. My ears are pricked because we've got a very exciting precinct and a very exciting green space, on the edge of the precinct that we're busy activating. So I think that we could do a very exciting challenge together. But I'll get in touch with you. Yeah.
You're most welcome.
Thanks for that, James. Any more questions for Dr. Davey before we go to the next item? Calayde, how many people say Dr. Davey? Yeah, that's a side note.
I don't know. I go, you can call me whatever you like.
No problem, thank you.
Could we ask you to pop your email address in the chat box?
Yes, I'll do that for you now.
Thank you.
I'll stop my share now. Where
Thanks.
do I start?
I don't know how. I saw that's a lot of slides. I'm not sure, but please send a version of the presentation.
It's not. I don't think it matters, Katlego. I think I just wanted to tell the story of what we do. And you please contact me if you want more depth, because that presentation is a process, not it's not teaching. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you for joining, and I'm sure you will be contacted by many precincts just to set up that challenge, and that'll keep you busy and thinking of how to solve these challenges. Thanks, Calayde. Okay, so the final speaker, let's see. Yes, still there patiently. Mr. Steve Carver from UcanCompany, who is a social entrepreneur who started educational community theatre for the first free elections of South Africa, and kept going on hand washing and HIV education across Africa and Latin America. So he started the Win-Win Group of companies and founded Africa's first totally free university named Eden Campus, the University Eden Campus. He now incubates 23,000 small farmers in Southern Africa and teaches a subject called How to Make Money. And his work is really around ensuring that his organization is building green livelihoods for communities in need and ensuring that there's equitable access to markets. So, Steve, definitely feel free to just come in and take us through the exciting and really innovative work that you and your organization really undertake. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm not if you can see my screen.
It was sharing briefly and then, okay, yeah, it's sharing now. We can see your screen. It's displaying the meeting so you can go through your slides. See.
I'm on here we go. Let me get to slides. Can you see that?
Yes.
It seems to be loading. Sorry, I'm on a brand new iPad. I'm not used to it.
No worries. Okay, it's there.
Are you
there
seeing
it is.
something now?
Yes, we're seeing a field with some grass.
There we go. Well, that's basically where. Are you seeing Des Dube in a shopping trolley?
Yes, I'm seeing that.
Okay, so it really started with storytelling and teaching in the mother tongue anywhere, and then I focused on a subject called how to make money, and I found most of our education doesn't teach that subject, and got very involved in doing work in Latin America. We took over a number of agricultural schools that were losing money, and we started to sweat the assets and change the curriculum until the farming schools could use the business of farming to run the entire operational costs of the schools. And we found that the students were learning something very important, and we called it the sort of invisible curriculum. And so 28,000 faith-based schools in Latin America. PwC did a forensic report on what happened to all of those students or learners that went through, and it worked out 93% of every child going through that education system would not make more than $1 a day. And so these were the largest poverty factories in Latin America, because it wasn't the content, it was the culture in which young people grew up. And so most of them were faith-based. So their leaders were nuns and monks who prayed and begged and waited for other people to solve their problems. And so we realized, well, if we change that and made real businesses and green businesses, and we focused on livelihoods, we could actually get students to make money, and we could make the institution make money. And eventually everyone said, please build more universities that look like Roman Greek buildings. And we were going to put it onto a phone instead. And so we started to look at wildlife corridors and rewilding across 9 African countries. And we realized we could use micro-learning, micro-jobbing, microfinance, and literally create little businesses in a box, if that makes sense. And so we grew that across for a number of exports. We're the largest Tabasco grower and chili grower. We then got into a multitude of different crops and farmers, and we found that there was a romance around small-scale growers. And the romance was mainly NGO and government-driven, but when you speak to small-scale farmers, they want to actually grow up to be a bigger farmer. And so we started lots of urban farming projects across the country, and then started to build up using technology. How can we look at different ways of moving micro businesses into bigger businesses? And so we work around what we call the 4 S's. We take individuals or families that are struggling on social grants, and we do everything we can just to stop the bleeding and to make them stable. And once they're stable, we look at what can we do to accelerate and incubate them into becoming successful. And once they're successful, can we create intergenerational wealth where they are creating other livelihoods and are now significant in the kind of shadow that they do? And so we have done lots and lots of different micro businesses. And I'm just going to jump onto a little presentation here, if you don't mind. And what's quite fun is that we've been using the Doughnut, but we use a lot of technology now. And so we partnered in Latin America with Poverty Stoplight. We've partnered with a Dutch organization called Smart Bio that looks at AI and large data for bio-regional data analysis. And we eventually came up with what we called HR Tinder. And working with and working in different communities, we found that there was a challenge with the moral compass of many young South Africans who are so desperate for employment that they become learnership or serial learnership preneurs. And we were doing, with the social works program in Marikana, about 1,500 youth. And we found that the same 1,500 youth would reapply every year, and we had no graduation. And so we started to look at using technology and using dating apps where it's literally, how do we get young people to swipe left and right around their passions, their strength, their wellness, their depression and anxiety, and how can we create a technology or a university or a process that is designed around them as the individual, rather than them fitting in to every single project. And so we've now been spending a lot of time building systems that allow young people to have the technology and the AI work around their learning style, their coaching style. And we've been building micro franchises or micro businesses. And these micro businesses are geared around how do we get them to make pocket money, be they wastepreneurs, and we've been partnering with Urban Surfer and a couple of others, be it agriculture, be it cultural capital with music and investment, tail, etc. And so it's almost like starting at white belt and then building up to black belt. And so as we develop through the 4 S's of the struggling individual or family to stable, to successful, to significant, we can bring different finance and different grants and different partners in at different stages. And so that is essentially what we've been doing. We've also done quite a lot down in Cape Town. We've got Black City Farms in Langa. We're doing things in Philippi. We've got projects in a number of different areas. Our latest one has been quite a fun one with Zama Zamas at the Cradle of Mankind near Nirox, 180 Zama Zama families. We buy from them, we give them starter packs of veggies, we sell into the culinary, marble, food lovers, some of the lodges and restaurants, and are finding passive pathways for families to move from illegal zama-zamaing into understanding that they can make a livelihood that is dignified in other ways. And again, not everyone thinks farming sexy, and so it's really around how do we use data, technology, and a lot of information around the passions, the interests, the strengths, and the kind of the God-given gifts that each person has had. So it's around, can we build a campus or a university around an individual and not make them dress up and fit in and line up in the way that most educational institutions for young people focus. And then the miracle happened. We were suddenly asked to look at illegal aliens in South Africa and a couple of other countries. And can we make starter packs for them to return home and not keep coming? And we've been doing that successfully for about a year. And then over the last year, we've suddenly been asked to do retired families, mainly in the Eastern Cape, with black tax. They get affected very, very suddenly. They lose a huge amount of money. They have a home, but there is no income generation. And so this ability to learn to make money and create very small steps that you can grow in a staged effect seems to work very well. And so we now develop hubs, almost like air traffic control, to look at what we call the 4 R's. We look at revenue. How do we get more and more revenue for families in that area? How do we look at risk by de-risk? How do we look at reputation and making sure that people are buying the story, not just the commodity, and that we're moving into manufacturing? And then we also look finally at regeneration. What are we doing from the from to themes? And so that is a little bit about what we're doing with the UcanCompany. And then we have You Can Grow, You Can Build, You Can Shine, You Can Prosper. So all of the different avenues that focus around the diagnostics around each individual and their family. So that is a little bit about us. I'm not going to go into more and more slides, but thought maybe we could have 1 or 2 questions.
Thanks for that, Steve. Another thing I was wondering is how you're going to present your company, because, you and your organization really do so many different things. I had the privilege, obviously, to go and see the gardens at the Cradle, which was very inspiring. And yeah, it's really hard to package everything you do into one short presentation. But I really push our network members and associates to reach out to you and see the possibilities from partnering with you and your organization in terms of improving the livelihoods of those vulnerable groupings in their respective precincts. And I think really the thought process around your organization and the process of you really improving the livelihoods of these people is very well thought out, very systematic, easy to track, and easy to implement. So, definitely would encourage everyone to reach out in their different capacities to see what's possible in their precincts. I just want to open up for any questions. I mean, obviously, since I've engaged with some of your products, I wanted to ask, in terms of a precinct wanting to develop this farm or agricultural hub in their precincts, what's the best way for them to do so through your organization? Is it only targeted at precincts with a large vulnerable grouping, or what's
No.
the case?
So what I think the most important thing is commerciality. There are lots and lots of projects, and they become white elephants because people use schools, they use parks, they use all sorts of things. They get people growing, but there's no constant market. And if you don't have a constant market that is the chimney pulling product and invigorating more and more people to create a dignified livelihood, these things never work. So you've got to work the other way around. So we were very lucky. About 5 years ago, Unilever saw our model. They said they're basically still the Dutch East India Company. 80% of all ingredients in Unilever and Nestle factories are imported from China and India. And they said, can we help start localization and looking at making sure the spices and products are grown in Africa? And so we worked with a Dutch organization called IDH Sustainable Trade. We got a alliance called the Southern African Food System Transformation Alliance, long word. The Competition Commission said, you guys can't work together. You fixed the price of bread. And then they gave us guidelines. And so they said, there are 4 pillars you can work on. If you're working on climate change and biodiversity crises for food security, we're happy that you work together. If you're looking at inclusivity and dignified livelihoods, we welcome that you all work together. If you're looking at better nutrition and less poison in the foods, and then finally food affordability. And so those are the 4 pillars we work on. And we buy back everything that is grown through digitally tracked farmers, be they a tiny plot, be they a back gardener, but it has to be tracked and traced on our system, else we will not buy from a passing bucky. And so we now have 8 to 9 crops per farmer. And that is the only way of getting those farmers into a financial situation where they're building their balance sheet. And we have some very good innovation at the moment. We're doing a lot of kenaf and hemp, mainly on old mines. We're mixing it with resins from sasol to make burn-proof shacks and houses and lodges. And so there's more and more excellence coming into the manufacturing sector. And it's through manufacturing, and we keep saying it's got to be grown and manufactured in your area, and that makes the difference. And so that is the only way we build real resilience or anti-fragility in the enterprises within these communities.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, really, when I really encountered the organization, as I've said to you before, I was very blown away at the scale and magnitude of the things that you and your organization has been able to achieve. And hopefully you presenting here to our network will open up a few more doors for you to explore these various sustainable, ecological, environmentally steered projects around building green livelihoods. Any more questions for Steve? think my curiosity is around how many urban spaces have you implemented the growth model and
So
prototyped?
we've done Langa. We're doing quite a lot now. We started in Alex on the East Bank, working with the water warriors. We've got river cleanup systems now that is going into further manufacturing. We've got more and more rewilding projects. We just finished one in Cape Town, the Liesbeek. We are working with most river systems, and then we're working now up the Kruger. We've just started in Huntington with buyback centers and hubs, and now about to open up in Acorn Hook and then move all the way along. So these fence line communities with conservation are very, very important, because that Gini coefficient is never going to be sustainable. And so we're working with a number of partners there, and then obviously doing quite a lot in Botswana, Malawi, Mozambique, Zambia, Zim, Namibia. But it's the same common sense. It's not charities, it is commercial businesses with supply chains, and that value is made and manufactured. We're moving far and far away from selling a tomato to how do we sell a unique tomato sauce.
Mm, mm. I think that's really, for me, what really interests me about the organization. It's not just extractive, it's also, educational, empowering, and ensuring that the person builds an economic pathway for themselves to sustain themselves, their families, and their livelihoods. So, from my side, always on your side, definitely thank you for presenting. And I'm sure a lot of people will be reaching out to you. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, with that, I'll just make a few quick announcements. As you know, this Friday there will be a G13 service delivery Friday task team / cleanup on the 6th of Feb. The location hasn't been released for that. And then obviously there'll be the Q4 Bloom Forum by the Department of Agriculture and Land Reform on the 25th of February around the implementation of the National Special Development Framework. And then there'll be the SALGO's Local Government Property Development Summit on the 26th to the 27th of February. And also the Q4 Gauteng Climate Change Forum on the 27th of February. All venues will be confirmed and shared with all of you. Please do, as I said, check the chat box for all the links to our website, our media pages, where you can get the calendars, event calendars, links to meetings, to join, locations, so on and so forth, as a valued member of our network. So please look towards that. And I think the next Urban Practice Forum is on the 3rd of March. And then the next chapter meeting, Johannesburg chapter meeting, it will be on the 24th of February. So I will see you then. And then feel free to reach out to me to get any context of the speakers that were here today, or to share any ideas that you had about collaborating with each of them. And then I'll just facilitate that conversation between you and that person. I see Steve has gone and took the liberty to share his email address. Please do look at that, just to reach out to him. And yeah, we will be finishing early today. So yeah, I know all of you are busy and we need to get to other meetings and so on and so forth. So I will say, obviously, from the GPMA, thank you all for joining. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day and see you at the next session.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Katlego.
Thank you, Katlego. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.